Our next guest is an evangelist. He goes all over the country preaching about the hazards, pitfalls of technology. He also believes in ghosts. I'll have Sean Patrick Tario. Tario or Tario?
Tario.
Tario. I got it right the first time. He is an author, an entrepreneur, and as I said, a bit of an evangelist. And I don't know, do you love data centers or is that like a parody?
Well, back in the day, I used to work in the industry, and I actually did love data centers. And I think if they're being used for the right purposes, I'm all about them. They serve a really good function if we're going to live in a world of technology. But it's all about intention, right? It's just like a firearm. A firearm can be used for evil. It can be used for good. What is the intentionality of the person who's using it?
How do we control it?
Well, you gain ownership of it, and we can dig into my story and why I do what I do. But when you realize who owns and runs and operates these facilities, and that it's the same corporate psychopaths that control and run the pharmaceutical industry and the food services industry and the banking industries and whatnot, they've now taken over the technology and infrastructure of that industry.
You sound like you're talking about Amazon to me.
Well, Amazon and Google and Microsoft and Apple and lots of these other companies. But really who I'm talking about is the Berkshire Hathaway, the State Street, the Vanguard, these big, large private equity firms, and then the families and the institutional and generational wealth behind those organizations that have taken over basically all of everything that we consume for the most part.
Like BlackRock. Is BlackRock
BlackRock's in that mix?
That owns like 5% of virtually every company traded on the New York Stock Exchange, or the top 200? I don't know. Some ridiculous number.
Yeah, it's more than that. It's BlackRock. I mean, they all own each other, right?
Yeah.
So BlackRock, Vanguard, State Street, Berkshire, they all have equity pieces in each other. So it's not like one person. They all own each other, and then they all have different equity and controlling stakes in various entities. But they came into the data center industry very hard in the early 2000s and have been slowly gobbling up all these different entities and providing the financing even for the likes of your Googles, your Apples, your Microsofts, your OpenAIs, all these different AI companies, Anthropics and whatnot, who are building out these massive facilities, which is nothing new. I mean, these data centers have existed at the scale that they exist today for a very long time. So people, I think, are just starting to wake up to what's actually happening, which I'm all about.
Yeah, but they seem to be accelerating at an ever-increasing rapid rate.
The mega data center is, yes. But these massive facilities that consume megawatts of power already exist all across the country. There's already close to 4,000 of these data centers in the United States alone, and people are just oblivious to it. They haven't known what they were. So it's interesting that people are now starting to fight harder to prevent them from coming into their neighborhoods when they're already there. Most people don't even know that they're there.
Well, Elon Musk says that we should move data centers into outer space, that we could power them with solar energy. That I think he said, I'm not sure I'm going to get this one right, but like 0.5 or 1.5% of the sun's energy actually reaches the earth, but that in outer space there is no atmosphere, there is no shield, so you get the full effect of the sun, and that we can power the data centers there. He also has said, which I think is very intriguing, that we can beam the sun's energy back to Earth and increase our energy dramatically just in that way. And it doesn't cost anything in terms of depletion of natural resources. It's all free.
Yeah. Well, it's not free, right? Because you have to build the infrastructure.
You got to build that beam, and I bet you that's not going to be cheap.
They've been talking about this tech I was reading about reports of this tech back in 1950. Not that I was alive in 1950, but reports coming out in the 1950s talking about this technology. So the question isn't, is it possible to do it? Yes, of course it's possible. We should have free energy all over the country. We should have dehumidifiers in every home that crank out water that can be used for drinking, for showering, for all kinds of things. We should have all this technology in our hands that serve the people and serve us, but instead what we have is a centralized, controlled infrastructure apparatus that's not designed to serve us, but to enslave us and to make us dependent and subservient. So the tech that he's talking about, funny enough, if you actually look into the historical records, I used to own lunar data centers, and I was, as a joke, back in the early 2000s, I was going to launch a website about lunar data centers and just use it as a big like April Fool's thing to try drive traffic to the data center stuff I was doing. But yeah, it's totally viable, totally real. You have data centers underneath the ocean as well. You can use the energy from waves to power data centers. There's so much stuff that we should be doing if we weren't living in a system that was literally designed to make a very small number of people stupid wealthy and the rest of us slaves.
Well, there's one bit of criticism that I would level at Trump on this. He calls it the Green New Scam. And by the way, I totally agree. But the alternative is to stay mired in the past. That is his solution. And he is all about fossil fuels and building more power plants. I am not a tree hugger. I am not a climate change believer, but I am fervently a conservationist. And, just like when I go to someone's home as a guest, I always try and leave the room that they've offered me in better shape than I found it. And I feel like that we each have an obligation to one another, and particularly future generations, to leave the earth better than we found it. So there are, as you point out, really good things that we could be doing that are reasonably cost effective, that are not going to solve anything. But if you combine them all together, they will incrementally make a difference. And I'm not worried about the temperature going up. I'm worried about all the plastic in the oceans. I'm worried about the trash in the streams and the rivers. I'm worried about the quality of our water. And yeah, I lived in Atlanta, and I moved there when I was 22. I'd never had allergies. Within 3 or 4 years, I suffered horribly from allergies. You look out the window, you see smog. We had the COVID crisis. No automobiles or planes traveled, and within a matter of a couple of days, the quality of the air and the picture of the sky changed dramatically for the better. So I think that I see nothing wrong. I see no downside to living cleaner, better, and looking for alternative sources of energy that are more cost effective, have less serious side effects. And like, I got solar on the top of my house. I've got 50 solar panels. It cut my power bill in half. I wanted 100, but the city wouldn't let me do it.
Yeah, sustainability, I think, is the key, right? That's what we should be aiming for, is sustainability. But that's not, I mean, what drives the world? And unfortunately, I guess the reality is you got to follow the money. You have to follow the money. And in all cases, at all times, with all things. And it's the case, unfortunately, with our existing energy grid. Who owns and controls and operates it all? And when those people benefit immensely from the existing paradigm, they don't want a new paradigm to exist. And that's why we see people who come up with and create new zero-point energy solutions or cars that are far more efficient. They end up, what happens to them, John? What happens to those people? They go missing. They end up dead of a heart attack. They end up having a car accident. Yep. Or they get bought out and they disappear and the technology gets hidden. So I don't think we live in a system that is designed to help us thrive and survive. And it only takes people, rethinking and reimagining how we operate in this existing system and paradigm for us to actually create and generate change. And we just need more of us to start waking up to what that system, that matrix is that we're living in, so that they can decide, okay, I need to exit this matrix, and I need to start actually aiming to help support not just myself and my family, but my community in ways that are not just, what I see on TV, the content that's constantly being fed me all day, every day.
So you really are an evangelist, are you not? I mean, some people talk the talk, others walk the walk. It seems to me you fall in the latter category, because you even named your company Mark37.com, with meaning a direct reference to the scripture in Mark chapter 3, verse 7 through 8. Is that right?
I mean, I'm a layman. I'm a businessman who just realized that I don't need to be a pastor or a priest in order to preach the gospel and share the truth and love. And so that's how I operate my life. That's how I operate my family. And I'm just trying to wake people up. And, thankfully, by the grace of God, I'm 40, soon to be 46. But when I was very young, I had a father who, when I was 14, started to really teach me and wake me up to how the world actually operates, and made me watch different videos like the Money Masters, which teaches you about the history of money and banking. G. Edward Griffin's book, The Creature from Jekyll Island.
Money's not the root of evil. The love of money.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I was just, I wanted to get the source. I know it's in the Bible. I just don't know where. But I was having a conversation with my friend, who's also a Baptist preacher. And I said, Anthony, don't you think that money is the root of all evil? He said, no. I said, what do you mean? He said, it's not money that's the root of evil. It's the love of money that's the root of all evil. Right. And so I got a valuable lesson that day. Isn't that implicit in everything that you're saying?
Yes, it is. But the key is, what is money? Like, even that, what is money? We're led to believe that money is the U.S. dollar. Well, the U.S. dollar is simply a form of currency. There are so many other forms of currencies. And if all we do is define money as dollars, then we're very narrowly defining and understanding what is money. Money is a medium used as a medium of exchange. It's a means of exchanging energy. That can be done through us trading eggs, time, anything, like bartering, all kinds of different things that we can be doing. So the love of money, is that the love of gold, silver? It all comes down to pride and envy at the end of the day. So what is money? Like, the love of money. Well, what is money? We have to answer that question. So really, we need to wake up as a society.
Do we have any hope of changing that as part of our value system? And I don't think it's just in this country. I see it becoming a global value.
Yeah, so we have to work first with ourselves, our inner selves, and get right with our relationship with our Creator. And then once that is in place and we're working on that process, we can start to gradually influence those around us. Because those people who are on the front lines fighting the different cultural wars that we're in right now that are not right with God, you can tell instantly. You know that they have a disorder in their life, in their priorities. So we need to get ordered first in our relationship with Christ, and then from there we can start working outwards and we can start influencing. And we have to start locally. So knowing where your local protein and produce is coming from, knowing the places that you can go shop where you're not being fed poison, having relationships with the people who live next to you, like getting to know your neighbors, like simple basic things that we've just seemed to ignore and have ignored. By you doing that, John, by me doing that, by getting other people around us in our circles doing that, rebuilding our culture, which used to be a Christian culture. We used to have a Christian culture. Our values were rooted in our culture. The events that we would celebrate as a community were focused around our faith, and we have turned to a godless, and worldly culture, and we're now trying to figure out, how do we as Christians live in the world but also not be of the world, And yet most Christians live in the world, and then they go to church on Sunday and they think that, they're blessed and they're saved, but then they go back and they just operate full time in the world. Like, we need to be living in Christ. Our culture, our community, everything that we're doing has to be in Christ. And then we embark into the world to try to pull people out of the world and towards Christ. Like, that's the framework that we have to be operating from, not the opposite.
I think you described what life in America was like when I was a kid. I mean, I was in church every single Sunday, not because I wanted to necessarily, but because my parents took me there. It wasn't optional. But today, I'm the beneficiary of that because I acquired a value system that I think works very well for me, and I'm very comfortable with it. And there are so many intangible benefits of that. I mean, as a little boy, I got to rub shoulders with the most powerful people in our community. I grew up in a relatively small town. I think there are 250,000 people in the general area, Macon, Georgia. But the, city proper, and, it's a big world, but it's a small place. And that was a really small place. But I would sit in church with the local judge, the most prosperous real estate and business person in the community. And
were they proactively living their faith day in and day out, or were they just showing up on Sunday and then going back and living in the world?
Well, I don't know the answer to that. All I know is that I got to observe them, and I was able to get to know them on some level. And I decided then I wanted to be like them. I wanted to achieve success because they commanded respect. And that's what I wanted for myself. And I don't know, if I hadn't gone to church, I may have missed out on that. And so I think that's just
I'm
one
not saying
intangible
don't go to
benefit.
church. I'm not saying don't go to church. I'm simply saying if you're going to go to church, the intention of going to church should not be like, I want to meet with the powerful people. If you're doing that, then become a Freemason.
No, I didn't say I wanted to meet
join
with the
some of
powerful
these
people. I just said
esoteric.
that was an intangible benefit that I acquired, and I was also able to acquire, more importantly, role models that I thought was very beneficial to me in my childhood development.
Well, that's key for all
I didn't know
of
what
our
I
youth.
wanted when I went to church. I just wanted to not get in trouble with my parents.
Yeah. Well, what we should be doing with our youth is surrounding them with other godly men and women so that they can learn from and see that there's other, as your point, other godly men and women that they can aspire to, that they can learn from, and realize that their parents are not the only ones. And unfortunately, people have been kind of, since pre-COVID and definitely post-COVID, people have been locked themselves down. They no longer have the communities. They don't know where to find these communities and outreach to these communities. But we as a business have been proactively trying to encourage people and point people to where they can find that local group of people who are awake and proactively trying to rebuild these systems that serve them and not serve the large corporate interests.
Well, how old did you say you were? 40 what?
45.
Man, tell you what, I don't know whether I was that smart as you are when I was 45 or not. You seem like you've got it figured out. So how's your business going, and what exactly is it that Mark37.com does?
So let me answer that by asking you a question. If I gave you or actually let me say this. If I approached you, John, do you own firearms? You probably do, right?
Yes, but only for hunting.
Okay.
Marginally for self-defense. But fortunately, I've never been required to use it, or even I have gotten my gun in the middle of the night before, but it just turned out to be an animal that was traversing our yard and set off the motion detector.
Gotcha. So if I came to you, though, John, and I said, look, I'm not gun savvy. In fact, I get nervous when I'm around guns. I really don't understand how they work. I know that if I pull the trigger, it will go boom and something will shoot out of it. What gun would you recommend I carry on my person all day, every day? What would you say?
None.
right? That's the right answer.
Yeah.
No. Some people are like, oh, well, a Glock. I'm like, no, 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 no. The right answer is you shouldn't carry until you get educated, until you get trained, until you get comfortable.
Well,
So
I mean, to each his own. I don't pack, and I'm not going to. And the one simple reason for that is I am prone to getting angry and in a hurry if someone does something that I feel like is intentionally offensive. And so I'm pretty sure I would have used that gun by now if I carried it. So I just elect not to. And I've never, only one time have I ever felt that I may have really legitimately needed a gun. And that episode lasted all of about 3 seconds or less. And so, I'm 100% in favor of the Fourth Amendment and the Second Amendment, I should say. And for gun ownership, I really don't question anything that the Forefathers wrote in our Constitution and Bill of Rights. I am just
so there's a reason why I asked you that question, though, John. There's a reason why. Because most people don't fully understand that these things, and your laptop, your phones and your laptops, they are the most sophisticated psychological warfare weapons ever designed. That's what they were designed to be. They were designed to be weaponized against us. And people say that's crazy. They didn't realize the capabilities of these things until after they started developing them. I'm a sci-fi buff, John. I've read, I could point my camera and show you my library. I've got a library of Isaac Asimov, of Brave New World, of Star Wars, of Dune. I'm a huge Dune fanatic. And I've read all kinds of historical sci-fi. People have been talking about how society is going to evolve, how technology is going to evolve, about robots and how we have to think about AI for decades, since the early 1900s and even before then. So to think that DARPA and the smartest agencies that we have in our government haven't been thinking through how these technologies are going to be leveraged and used into the future is just keep your head in the sand and be ignorant of history and of just facts and knowledge and how systems operate and how systems work. So we have to understand that these things that we carry around with us that control and influence us all day, every day, which they have spent trillions of dollars in development over decades to create these things using the most sophisticated psychological manipulation techniques. And if you even talk to the engineers, and they put out documentaries about this, they will tell you straight up, this is how they've been designed. They've been designed to, I'm sorry, what?
Nothing, go ahead.
They've been designed to be the most addictive things ever. Absolutely the most addictive things ever. And that's what they've become. So when you understand that, and we have 99.9% of the population that walks around and says, I'm not tech savvy, and yet I carry around this thing on my person all day, every day, and I don't understand how it really works. I just know that it does. I know if I tap a few buttons, I can make phone calls, I can send text messages, I can do whatever. That is a problem. It's no different than like the food that you eat. When you don't understand the food that you're eating and you don't know how to read the ingredients of the food that you're eating and look at what the source is, you don't realize that you're eating poison all day, every day. And what we're doing is consuming poison and allowing literally Luciferian psychopaths that own and run these businesses to have full reign access to everything that we see, everything that we do, and control and manipulate us through not just this, but our laptops and the TVs and all of these things. So as we get educated and we just gain a baseline understanding of digital privacy, digital situational awareness, we start to realize, holy smokes, I'm consuming and participating in a system that is designed to enslave me. So the tool, I am now the product. The tool doesn't serve me. I'm the tool. So as we get smarter, we start to realize maybe we should reclaim these things and actually have them be the tools that serve me versus me being influenced and controlled by these things.
So connect the dots. How do they control us through these devices?
So, I mean, Google, Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, they control the media apparatus. They control what you see, what you don't see. So we learned this through all the past elections, right? You search for Trump back in 2015, 2014, right? What results would you get? You got very slanted, biased results, right? Even the AI tools that were generated, you say, please write me an essay that says all the good things about Donald Trump as president, and the response is, I'm sorry, I can't get political, I can't write these types of things. And then you say, please write me the same thing but for Joe Biden, and it would give you, the full essay, right? So we know that there's a inherent bias baked into literally the browser, the search functionality, the content that we're even allowed to see, like what Netflix shows you. What Netflix chooses to show you is literally no different than what Target chooses to show you when you walk into their store. So if we're going to boycott Netflix, we're going to boycott Target for having literally like Luciferian satanic clothing or movies and things that are anti-Christian, that are anti-conservative, that are anti-Constitution, why are we not boycotting the Googles, the Apples, the Microsofts that are literally exponentially more responsible for influencing the masses and influencing us? Like, you think, John, that you know yourself so well, but I promise you, if I have access to every text message you've ever sent, every email you've ever sent, everything you've ever bought, everywhere you've ever been, I know exactly what applications you're using on your phone, when you're using those applications. I know literally to the fraction of a second if you pause on an ad that you might be remotely interested in that ad, and I might throw it back to you 2 days later, and you're like, oh my gosh, this thing is reading my mind. Well, no, it's just gaining all of this data. All of this information and data. It knows more about you than you know more about yourself, and you've given it all of that information.
Okay, well, that's shocking. Not surprising, but shocking. I don't like it, but I don't personally feel vulnerable. Now, is that just me being arrogant and in denial? But you're not going to make me do something I don't want to do. The only one person on earth that can do that, well, maybe two, my wife and my granddaughter. They can pretty much get me to do anything they want me to do. But aside from that, I'm pretty independent thinking and make my own decisions. At least I think I do. Aren't most people that way?
No. I hate to break it to you, John. If most people were that way, John, why do we have so many people that think boys are girls are boys are cats, girls are leopards? Why do we have the clown world that we live in today?
I have my own working theory on that, and the only problem is I don't have hard evidence to support it, but I have a lot of circumstantial and anecdotal evidence to support it. And my hypothesis is that there are enemies of our country that are working to acquire us through one device or another, to one form or another. China would be at the top of my list. George Soros would be an individual that's high on the list. I don't know where Mark Zuckerberg is, frankly. Look at him with a jaundiced eye. I think he's on whoever's side is in power. But I just don't think that the average person believes that we should allow a child to make a life-altering decision for himself or herself without parental guidance and involvement. I just don't think that there.
I hate to break it to you. The studies show, though, John, that those numbers of people who believe that is growing exponentially. Not exponentially, but it's growing every day.
Well, I don't know that I believe that either. I think that we are being lied to and manipulated, and that the goal is to divide us, make us angry at one another, and make us more susceptible to being co-opted by a foreign country or bad actors.
So I think
Because
that is part of the
I think
agenda.
this stuff is so bizarre and so nonsensical that I just cannot put myself in those people's shoes to allow myself to believe any of the garbage. Men
I
and
want you
women's
to go-
sports, I mean, you must be crazy. You must be
And yet it's still happening all the time.
Crazy.
It's still happening all the time. Walk into any university, walk into any high school, public high school, public elementary school, and even most private schools, and you interview those students there and ask them how they feel about these issues, John. And the majority of those kids are going to tell you, yeah, that makes sense.
Operative
Yeah, that's
word,
okay.
kids.
Yeah. But those kids then become teenagers. Those teenagers become young adults, and then they grow up through a system where they're surrounded by, again, worldly media, worldly content that keeps telling them that this is normal, this is okay. In fact, you're a bigot, you're a racist if you don't think these things. So that's what's happening. This is where we have to reclaim our Christian heritage and our culture.
So who is the sponsor of this BS?
What BS?
That you just went through. That you're a
Who's
racist.
the sponsor of it?
You're whatever you said, homophobe or whatever, and that children should be able to change their sex without their parents' knowledge or consent. That guys should play in girls' sports. I mean, who is developing these nonsensical notions? And to what end?
You know the answer to
No,
this.
I really don't. I've been looking for the answer to it.
Well, the primary mover there is Lucifer, right? Satan, who wants to create disorder in our souls. That's the whole purpose. So it's coming at you from all kinds of angles. Is China involved in pushing this disorder? Yes. Why? Because they know by pushing that disorder into the psyche of a population, it's going to create disordered impact through the family, through the society, through the culture, through the political realm, through all of it, and it's going to weaken and crumble that system. All of the enemies of the United States are fighting that same battle. But it goes beyond that because the U.S. isn't the only one affected by this. You have the same thing going on in Europe. You have the same thing going on in Asia. You have the same thing going on in almost every major culture. So we can't say, well, this is an attack on America. Well, if it's an attack on America, America is now using this. We are not giving money in prior administrations. We refused to give money to countries unless they accepted the woke LGBT propaganda machine into their country. They could not get access to funding from the International Bank of Settlements and the World Bank unless they acknowledged and abided by those rules. So we can't say this is just, well, this is an America problem. They're fighting against America. Well, to answer your question, who's the who behind it? Follow the money. Follow the money, John. Who's the money behind it? It's a group of people who literally worship Satan. They're called the Luciferian death cult. And as you start digging down these rabbit holes, which I've been digging down these rabbit holes for 25 years, John, and what I found is absolutely terrifying. But we have to stand in our truth in Christ. And that's what gives us the authority and the power to exist on this planet and spread truth and love and fight against the evil that we're up against. But we have to be aware of what it is that we're fighting against and have to be able to say, that's not okay. I need to exit this system. Like the Matrix is built to keep you enslaved, to keep you uninformed. So yes, John, I would say that you are ignorant in saying, well, it's not a threat. I'm not a threat. It's not a threat. They are making money off of you.
I never said it wasn't a threat. I just said personally, nobody is going to influence me to do something that I feel is wrong. Wrong based on the teachings of the Bible and of my belief in God, or wrong based on the way I want to treat a fellow human being, or even a dog or a pet or a pigeon that landed on my terrace out here. I could have killed the pigeon. I just concluded to shoo it away. I'm just saying, I get what you're saying. I do, loud and clear. But where are the individual's abilities to think for themselves and discern truth from falsity? And when you I'm not challenging you at all. I believe you. I do believe that there is evil in this world. I do believe that there is a real devil, Lucifer, you term it. Why? Why would anyone choose to worship Lucifer? I cannot come up with an intellectual argument that any conscious person that is sane would say, "Oh, I'm going to worship the devil." What's in it for them? I mean, I know why I worship God.
Wealth.
Because I believe
power,
I believe
influence.
that Jesus came to this earth. I believe that he was here on behalf of his Father. I think he died for our sins. I accept it hook, line, and sinker. But when I have doubts, I resolve it that I'm going to believe, because I would actually like to get into heaven. I would actually like to live eternally in the house of the Lord. But what are you going to get for worshiping the devil? You want to go to hell for eternity? I mean, what's in it for him?
John, you got to be kidding me, man. How have you gone your whole life and not
that?
With everything that you've done and been involved with? You're telling me you have never met men and or women who truly wanted to be gods on earth. Gods on earth. They wanted to have influence, power, control. They didn't care about ethos. They didn't care about ethics or morals or values. All they wanted was power. They had a hedonistic mentality.
Well, look,
where
everybody
they wanted
has,
to serve them.
Everybody has those temptations. I mean, money and power is what drives our culture and our society. I mean, let's don't kid ourselves. I think every human being has moments where they want all the above. But there's this little thing called self-discipline that I think keeps us in check.
But John, you can't sit there and claim to me that you don't understand how it is that there are people who are that evil. Like, if you don't
No, sir.
believe that Jesus Christ
I don't know
is the
what
Son
I said
of God,
to make you think that I don't believe that there's evil. I just don't. You missed entirely what I'm asking. I'm just asking what the motivation is beyond earthly,
and I'm telling you, it's power.
Things. Can they not?
It's
see,
power. It's greed.
Can they not see beyond their time on earth and the consequences that they may face for eternity?
No, they can't.
So they just don't believe in an afterlife.
I've met these people. I've had conversations with these people. They truly believe that they are gods on earth, and they say, what's going to happen after I die? There's probably nothing after I die. All that matters is what I care about right here, right now. What I want, how I want to get my needs and wants fulfilled right here and right now. They do not have a concept of eternity, nor do they care to.
Doesn't that just get us right back to the scripture? And it's not money that's the root of all evil. It's the love of money. And you could substitute money for power.
Sure.
I mean, I think you could make a real strong argument that Donald Trump is obsessed with power. I just happen to believe that his guiding principles are that he wants to use that power for good. Now, that's what I believe. People can have their own opinion, but he has tried to get us out of every war that exists on earth, and I think he's working on it every day. And I think he's making progress. I don't think he wants Iranian governments to kill 43,000 of their own citizenry. And I don't think that he wants people to live in poverty. I think he wants to create an environment and an economy that all people can have their needs met. I don't think he wants crime to occur in America. I think he wants people to live in a safe community and be able to walk the streets without fear. I could continue down the list. But that's what I believe. And so, power used for good purposes, I think is okay. Power used for bad purposes is not okay. And society should punish that.
Well, the question is, who do we serve? And we don't need to get into the Donald Trump, rabbit hole, but who do we serve?
God.
And like you've chosen that for yourself. I've chosen that for myself. And it's taken, a lot of humbling where the Lord has humbled me to realize that power and wealth and fame, I don't subscribe or want, desire any of it. All I subscribe to and want is to serve him and to love him every day. And so that's why I'm in the Word every day. That's why I'm constantly asking him to reveal himself to me more every day so that I can better discern his will for my life and for all the people that I have influence over, so that I can spread the gospel and spread truth and love. And that's part of why I do what I do. And, you call me an evangelist or whatever, a preacher. All I'm trying to do is get people to wake up to the reality of how these things work, that they carry around with them all day, every day, because I think it does matter. Because by using these tools, like if we're going to sit here and say that we're fighting against those who are trying to enslave us, if we believe that we're in a cultural war right now, why are we using literally the tools of the enemy to try to fight the enemy? That makes no sense. That's like giving a soldier on the battlefield a firearm and saying there's a GPS tracking device on it, there's a camera and a microphone. All of the data, all of that information on that thing that you're going to go use in battle is going to be fed to the enemy that you're about to go fight. That's a suicide mission. That makes no sense. Why are we doing that? And yet that is exactly what you're doing when you're using Google Android, when you're using iOS, Mac OS, when you're using Microsoft Windows, when you're using WhatsApp or Facebook or TikTok. That is exactly what you're doing. And they make money off of you all day, every day. And you don't even know that they're doing it.
No, I
but
really don't.
But they are selling your data.
I'm hypersensitive to it, and I question just about everything. But anyway, that's just me. But you do believe in ghosts.
Well, I believe that there's spiritual entities.
No, I'm teasing you. Come on now. I'm going to have some fun with you, whether you want to or not, Sean. I'm just saying you believe in ghosts, and the ghosts that you believe in are ghost phones, ghost laptops, and ghost tablets. Talk to us about
it. Those are the devices that we sell, and they are essentially tools that now give you control. You now have authority over your device. And the key is the operating system. And I encourage people to go to our website, mark37.com, and John, you too, so that you can learn and get educated about how these things work, how they operate, how exactly you are being influenced in ways that you may not even know or realize that you are.
What would be a way? What would be a way that could happen?
The simple thing that we already discussed.
An example.
Like the ability for you to even access a website. Like, do you know, John, that the domain name servers that are out there and the different hosting providers and the different search engines that are out there will either determine whether you even see if a website exists or not?
Yes, I am vaguely aware. I've heard anecdotally about that. I've never been able. I've never searched for a website that I knew to exist that I wasn't able to find.
Well,
I haven't had that personal experience.
There's a lot of websites that are out there that don't, people don't even know exists because they don't allow you to find.
Well, sure. I mean, there's also we see 10% of the World Wide Web and 90% of it is the dark web. I've never been to the dark web. I don't know what it is.
It's all those domain names that you can't find.
I'd like to look behind there, but I'm afraid that I wouldn't be able to unsee what I see. So I just have kept it closed.
All it is the websites that you can't find through a regular browser.
Well, what are they?
That's all it is. It's all kinds of stuff. It's forums. It's there's some crazy bad stuff that goes on those sites, but there's also crazy bad stuff that happens on sites that you can find.
Yeah.
But let me go back to answering your question.
How am I being influenced? How am I being coerced? What is it that these demonic people are going to cause me to do that I don't want to do?
Okay. So do you remember Parler? Remember Parler?
Vaguely.
The social media company Parler?
Yeah, vaguely. What was it? Or is it?
Parler was a social media company, and they got, a lot of the J6ers were on Parler. And after January 6th, Amazon Web Services gave them 24-hour notice that they had to leave their servers. That's like telling a company that has 2,000 employees in an office skyscraper that you have 24 hours, you have to vacate the premises. You're basically putting this company out of business, essentially, which is what happened. So they said, hey, you're done. You're off our platform. The same time, what happened to Trump on Twitter?
They banned him.
They banned him. And not only him, but they banned hundreds of thousands of other people, and then became much more than that during COVID.
Well, I ran for Attorney General of Georgia, and YouTube wouldn't, they kicked us off of YouTube. They wouldn't run my ad. And I don't know what I said that would have been offensive other than the 2020 election was stolen.
So if people were looking for you, John, they couldn't find you. They couldn't actually know that you existed on those platforms.
True that.
Okay. So that is a means by which they can control what information and data you do or don't have access to.
Oh, I get that part.
Okay. So that's one of the many ways. I encourage your listeners. I have hours long worth of presentations, and I have condensed presentations on this topic alone that will get you informed and educated about all the ways you are being influenced by these devices, through these devices. And the key is the operating system. So when you understand how these technologies work, the operating system of your device is the core brain of your device. So it sees down at the hardware, so it knows your cameras and your microphones and all the things, and then it looks up at the applications as well. And when we're giving control of the operating system to Google through Google Android, or to Apple through your iOS, or to Microsoft through Microsoft Windows, you're literally giving the brain of your device to these companies and trusting that they have your best will in mind, which we can see, and we have this, again, all documented on our website. We've seen through the court of law over and over again that these companies are lying through their teeth to us, no different than the financial firms and the insurance firms who get found liable and taken to court. Due diligence is done. They're found liable to pay fines of like $100 million. And people are like, oh, they got a slap on the face because they had to pay $100 million when they made billions of dollars. And then they go right back to doing what they were doing before. The same thing is happening with these technology companies where they're literally documenting everything that you're doing all day, every day, and selling it. But you, when you download and subscribe to these services, when you set up your iCloud account, when you set up your Google account, when you set up your Microsoft account, you're literally signing terms of service, which nobody reads.
Nobody reads. They're page after page after page of fine legalese print. I just worry that, I've given up my firstborn if I jaywalk. I mean, I don't know what's in those contracts.
Well, the point of all this is that you can escape that system by controlling your operating system.
Okay. So I buy a Mark37.com ghost phone.
Yes.
Ghost
and
laptop,
all I've done, John, all I've done, and all our business does, is we take existing technologies that are out there and we make them accessible and usable to everyday people. Because years ago, when I started going down these rabbit holes about, well, what's the tech that can protect me? I had geek friends who were like, oh, you can use this, you can use that, but it's going to take you 10 hours worth of setup, and it's going to take all this coding and scripting. And I was like, no way. I'm not doing all that.
What functionality might I miss if I were to get one of your devices?
You really won't miss it. It's not the functionality that you miss, because you'll still be able to do all the things. You'll become smarter, and you'll start saying, "Well,
I want one.
Do I
need one quick?
Do I need to use this application?" It's not, can I use this app? You can get a de-Googled phone and then just install a bunch of Google software on it and give access to your whole device to Google again, which defeats the purpose.
Okay, so Sean, you have sufficiently freaked me out. I'm thinking about a ghost phone and a laptop and a tablet. How do I know that you're not with the company and that when I get one of those devices, they'll know everything?
That's a great question. So one of the cool features with Linux and with Graphene OS, which is the operating system on the phones, is you can actually audit it. It's open source. So are you familiar with what open source is? So
I led a software development team early in my career.
Awesome. So by
you were
the
born,
software
by the way.
being, it probably was.
Yeah.
So the open source software allows you to audit it. It allows a community of people to audit it. So you can do research online. You'll find that all of the top spooks out there that actually care about privacy and security are going to tell you that Linux and Graphene OS are the bee's knees. We also know this because the UK, Communist UK, and the EU, Communist EU, are all telling you don't use Graphene OS because only criminals use Graphene OS. So that tells us they're saying that because they want you to use the platforms that they can gain full access and control and influence over. But the system itself is auditable. So you can literally from another device pull up a QR code on your phone and scan it, and it will verify that the software on it is clean, that there's no like hidden, it hasn't been hacked, it hasn't been modified or tweaked.
Same thing that Dominion told us.
Yeah, but Dominion wasn't open source, John. If it was open source, we'd be able to tell and definitively prove all the different ways that it was, stealing elections.
Well, listen, you've given us a lot to think about. I do celebrate the cause that you're on very much. We are on the edge of a exponential expansion of AI. If it's in the hands of good people, I don't worry if it's in the hands of bad people. And you've convinced me, not that I needed it, but they're out there. And so I think all of us need to have our guard up, frankly.
Yeah, and we need to do something. We need to stop using the tools of the enemy to try to fight the enemy. I feel like I'm taking crazy pills, especially
Listen, I sympathize. I feel like we're living sometimes in an alternate reality. And I go through and I try and explain major current events and why the narrative doesn't make sense to people. And I start feeling that they're looking for the exit signs. And then I want to look for the exit signs because I feel like they think that I'm crazy and that I'm making this stuff up. But the fact of the matter is, it's just the hand we're dealt and the facts that we're being given. And 2 and 2 doesn't equal 4. So I just feel compelled to point it out.
Well, I just want to tell your listeners and you, we need to stop focusing on all the crap that we can't control. Worrying every day about things that are totally outside of our influence and control versus worrying about the things that we can control and our direct influence. Do you know your neighbors? How do you know how to serve your neighbors? How can we, organize locally to create that local impact? And then grow from there. Some of us have already gone through that process. We already figured out, our own self stuff. We've moved beyond that, and we're in the greater influence of power and whatnot so we can make a bigger impact. Great. That's not the majority of people, though. It's not the majority of people who literally waste so many hours of their day screening, flipping through their phone, looking at all this garbage content that serves no purpose other than to waste their time and their soul. They need to be out, interacting, communicating, making things happen in the physical, tangible world than sitting in this place of anxiety and angst, which is exactly where the devil wants you to be. So if you're not out making things happen, trying to figure out where you're going to get your local protein and produce, trying to figure out how you can reclaim your technology to serve you and not be the product of it, you're literally on the sidelines exactly where the devil wants you to be in this war that we're in right now.
All right, folks, you heard it right here first. Sean Patrick Tario, he is an entrepreneur. I'm going to stick with evangelist and a tech-savvy guy that wants you to pay attention. No harm in that. Thanks, Sean.
You're very welcome. Thank you, John.